So we're very excited. We have 4 great speakers today who are all been doing COIL quite a while in this very new medium. It's amazing to have people that have been in it for pretty much since the start, and even before it had a name called Virtual Exchange. So we have from Japan, Keiko Akira, who's the Vice Director of International Affairs at Kansai University. She's also the COIL coordinator, and you'll see her full bio in a minute. We have Nail Alami, who's the Provost from Modern University for Business and Science in Lebanon. And we have Osvaldo Succi, who's the Virtual Exchange Coordinator for the whole of Central Paulo Sousa, which is the area around São Paulo, or actually it's probably bigger. It's actually, Osvaldo will explain, in Brazil. And Miriam Hauch, who's the Associate Head of the Department of Languages of the Open University. She also works with me at the COIL Center doing professional development, and she's been doing it longer than I have, forever and ever, since probably the early days, 2000. But she's been doing, and she'll tell you too, she's been doing virtual exchange with languages for many years before that. So with that, we are going to move right ahead. This is, each panel person gets only about 5 minutes, and then we're going to head into discussions. And I asked everybody before we got together to think about a couple of 4 things: a basic understanding of your kind of virtual exchange, and how you prepare your students and your professors to do this, and what kinds of things work best for topics to head off, things that are uncomfortable for your faculty and students, and things that it's better to stay on, or customs or nuances that we should know that might offend your students or your professors, and so things that obviously we work on in virtual exchange. So with that, we are going to move to Keiko. And here's Keiko's much larger bio, and we'll share the presentation widely with everyone, so you can have this for your notes along with what Catherine's putting together in video. Thank you so much. And hi, Rosie from DePaul. So great you're on. Okay, with that, Keiko, take it away.
All right, so before I start, so who's clicking the slides then? That you? Who?
What? Yes, I'm doing the
slides for me. Okay, yeah. Great, thank you. All right, so hi everybody, I'm Keiko from Kansai University in Japan. I'm gonna, because we don't have much time to explain what we do in bigger scales, I'm just gonna skip through the new institute that we launched last year. But we've been doing the KU COIL, we call it KU COIL for a while, since 2014. That's when we started and joined the Global Partner Network. And currently, what we do with the COILing, basically the virtual exchange we do is COIL, and we actually provide it into 3 tracks. And first track is for almost everybody in our campus, students who are curious about learning about other culture, and this is more considered to be general education level COIL, collaborative online international learning. And the
Keiko,
second
can
track,
I just interrupt you for 1 second? So just for everybody to know, the acronym COIL stands for Collaborative Online International Learning, just so the acronym land people. Thank you, sorry.
Sure. And the second track of a COIL that we have right now is a task-based learning, and that's got to do with more of a specified discipline. For example, the science professor is doing collaborative project with another science professor. So that's track 2. And mainly what we do right now is track 1 and track 2. And track 3 is more of a degree bound, which is something that we're developing currently. So we don't have it yet. So next slide, please. And this is just an example of what we do currently emphasizing. So we have the COIL program going on, so course collaboration, and also we're adding a study abroad to it, and we call it COIL Plus. So this is something new since last year. So they do the COIL and then exchange students for a couple months, and they are doing a laboratory internship at each other's university, and they come back and then they'll still keep going with their own online collaboration again. So it's a sandwich, the model that we're focusing right now. Next slide. And this is just an example of what they're doing. Next slide, please. And this is just a snippet from the study abroad part. Next slide, please. I think there were several questions regarding of how we support our students to actually smoothly run the collaboration with particularly American students. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
That would be great.
One of the things we do is we actually try to have a good mixed group on our Japan side. So Japanese students in our class might have a very weak language proficiency when you're collaborating with the Americans, meaning that English could be the medium. So what we do is to mix them with the international students we have on campus who might be a little bit stronger in the language proficiency wise, but they may not have enough information regarding cultural knowledge about Japan. So they make a team on our local end, and then they make another the virtual team with the American groups. So in that way, they supply each other with their strengths and weaknesses. Then communication also project-wise, they all run smoothly. That's what we do as in one of the options we apply whenever it's possible. So that's one thing we do. I think the third question that Hope wanted us to answer was, what are the very good icebreaker topics that works well with a particular region? And for Japan, as far as my experience coming, the students who in icebreaker exchanges, learning, getting to know each other, they just love talking about food. So food doesn't, and whenever you talk about food, and they get along really well after that. And also popular culture is something they love to introduce. And nowadays they have all these links, possible images they can share. So anything with a visual art and a popular culture, those things quite often that they can actually provide a lot of resources they have access to, and they have a very good communication after that. So team building works really well with that. Cultural.
So you actually, that's your time, but
Okay.
If you just want to finish your thought, and then we'll move on.
Okay. Cultural, there's something that we should be careful about, or the cultural taboos and concerns that people should know when you're doing a collaboration. Student-wise, it's not really much there. In terms of professor, when you're actually developing COIL course with the instructor in Japan, how to consider devices like email, how often do you check emails, how often do you reply to emails, what kind of SNS devices that they actually find that to be most useful in communication. Those things might be very different from culture to culture. In Japanese professors tend not to use the SNS for their communication device. But that doesn't mean that they are attentive to replying to emails either. So in other words, you're going to have to find a very good way, case by case, a certain method to actually communicate with each other, and building the rapport with the instructors, as everybody knows, that's the most important thing to actually get that successful COIL happening. So it's not about the cultural specific to Japan, but it's pretty much that getting to know that your partner's IT culture, I guess. That's one thing I would end with.
Thank you. That's a great thing to end on, huh? All right. So we will move from Japan. Thank you, Keiko. And please, if you need to bow out at any time, totally understand. We shall move to the Middle East and to Nail. And I do have the presentation now on another monitor so I can put it up.
Great.
Nail, take it away.
Thank you very much. So I'm Nail Alami. Excuse me, there's a flu going around Lebanon. So I'm Nail Alami. I'm the director of the Virtual Exchange Program at MUBS, Modern University for Business and Science in Beirut, Lebanon. I'm the newly appointed provost, as Hope mentioned, and I'm very passionate about the Virtual Exchange Program at MUBS. We actually started the Virtual Exchange Program in 2015 at a time when we were not aware of the COIL at all. At the time, we didn't know that it is called virtual exchange. So the idea, the origin of the virtual exchange program at MUBS stemmed from personal experiences. I'm somebody who lived in the United States for 15 years, and we experienced cultural stereotyping, and we wanted to bridge students from the Middle East with students in the United States, and that's how we started thinking of principles that would allow our students the opportunity to know each other and learn from each other. So we definitely started by thinking, Hope, if you can take us to the previous slide, of the classroom that students can get in touch with each other, in-person student exchange, study abroad programs, and educational travel. All these were wonderful, and Alport did great research on those modes of exchange. So, sorry again, I hope it's the slide before the one that you currently have.
Okay, so sorry.
And we came up with contact theory, and a lot has been elaborated upon since the Cold War on contact theory. So we wanted to study, we started this program with research studies in mind, and that's how we started working on the virtual exchange program. We wanted to focus on 4 specific principles. So if we go 2 slides ahead, please.
Okay.
I'm giving you this introduction because I know that since we're outside COIL, we haven't worked with COIL before, and we just started this. I wanted you to get a better idea of how our program is designed. So we wanted to fulfill the 4 elements of contact theory that make it a successful way for students to connect, to learn from each other, and to gain the cultural competence that we all hope for. 1, official sanction, which is professors and administrators from the universities that students are part of taking over this initiative. 2, a sense of social equality, allowing the students to get shared documents, shared access to the course material on both sides of the partnership. Purposeful pursuits, the students work within teams in the classrooms so that they can pursue a project or an assignment. And collaboration, students on both ends work together in teams. So students in Lebanon, in a team of 4, work with 2 students in the United States. So 2 students from Lebanon work with 2 students from the United States or in Europe, so that they can come up with a capstone project by the end of the experience. Can you go to the next slide, please? So we started using Stanford University's Lagunita platform, or online learning platform. Next. Our students
we should talk to all these people about Narrative Atlas.
Video conference rooms so that they can take joint lectures. We make sure that the syllabus of the courses are designed by both professors on both ends of the next.
Somebody who's on the phone in their car or traveling, can you please mute? Thank you.
And we made sure that students meet outside the classroom in smaller groups so that they can work together towards a capstone project and joint assignments, making sure that the students will connect within the discipline that they are studying. And we design the interviews and the assignment in a way that we make sure that they are getting connected in depth, getting to know each other in depth. For courses on parenting, for example, we make sure that they are interviewing each other to understand better the parenting styles of each other. This allows them more comfort to explore each other's circumstances while being given the license from their professors to actually do that, so that they don't have any barriers to connect with each other. Next slide. And of course, there are joint annotation and joint documents using Google Drive, OneDrive, etc. Next. All right, and since we were connecting data, we wanted to make sure that we are actually, we have control groups where the students are not part of the virtual exchange program and others who are, so that we make sure that they are indeed benefiting from the experience academically within their discipline, as well as measuring the cultural competence gains that they have. Next slide. We can skip those, I think, because I don't want to waste more time on those. We can
Okay,
talk
so you need to finish
the
up.
data that we have collected from this experience later on. We can go to the slide about what we actually may do.
Yes.
So we've used immersive learning experiences where our students and the students in the States and Europe go and have field visits using 360 cameras so that they can come back to the classroom and share all the information. So if they visit the refugee camps, we have some courses in global health. Students on both ends of this partnership can benefit from immersive learning environments using easily accessible technologies. You can see here a Google Google Goggles, I think is the name, allowing them to look at the material and identify challenges towards putting together a proposal and a capstone project. Next. So for our preparation for our professors, we make sure that we meet with our professors one-on-one, identifying and explaining to them what the aims of the virtual exchange program are. The group meeting is also very beneficial because we need to introduce professors on both ends on a personal level so that they can work together. We make sure that they design the syllabus of the course together as well, so that there is an active participation on both ends. No one is passive. And we build a relationship of trust by taking our time designing every one of those courses. We establish guidelines early on, maintaining margins of autonomy that include grading, that include communication with students on each end separately, and open communication channels. We meet on a weekly basis, and we have WhatsApp groups that allow us to communicate on the spot. Next. With the students, we meet students prior to the class launch. So once the students have registered in the course, we meet with them, we give them presentations, and we explain to them what the benefits of virtual exchange are. We allow them to meet students from previous iterations of the course so that they can get a better idea from other students of what virtual exchange is. And these usually are wonderful. There's always usually wonderful feedback from the students. They always recommend others to participate in the virtual exchange. We set their expectations and we address their concerns. We introduce the partner institution and the professor in the partner institution. And they we make sure that they are working throughout the course collaboratively and that they are connecting off campus, not just through Skype and WhatsApp to talk about their capstone project, but that they are also available to discuss matters beyond the class material as well. Most of our students connect via Facebook and become friends by the end of that experience. Next. Concerns or cultural red flags, maybe. So there's always the issue of stereotyping that takes place, especially from students in Europe and the United States. They're always surprised that the majority of students in Lebanese classrooms are actually female. They are always concerned, or they always bring up the issue of freedom of choice for career choice or major choice, etc. So these are things that make our students laugh. Sometimes it makes them uncomfortable. Our students are sometimes concerned about their knowledge of English as a second language. We usually overcome that burden early on because Lebanese students are pretty proficient using English. We make sure that the student contribution to the capstone projects is equal and balanced because that's usually a concern. It's good to bring that up early on and follow up on that throughout the experience. Because we're conducting research that will be published in the next couple of months, it's always good to get consent. There are considerations in our culture whereby hardly think of in Europe and the States. For example, some of our students don't want to be on camera, they'd rather not be on video. So we always make sure that we get their consent. Privacy and confidentiality issues, especially when the topics are sensitive. And we make sure that the professors in the States and Europe know that there should be active contribution by the professors on our side as well, because there is some sort of stereotyping that they can contribute more than they necessarily should. So make sure that they feel equal, and that's something important. That's all I have for now, and we can discuss more later.
Okay, great. That was wonderful. Okay, Osvaldo, you are up. Oh, Osvaldo.
Okay, I'm here.
Great.
Okay. First of all, just a friendly reminder, you know, I'm in Brazil, so the sun is up. Its temperature is around 90s here. And let's start. Thanks.
Rubbing it in or what?
Just a bit. I just would like to thank Hope for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to talk to Virtual Exchange friends. This is a picture from our beautiful building in São Paulo City. Is Centro Paula Souza. Next, please, Hope.
Yes, of course.
This is a map of our campuses on São Paulo State. We operate only on São Paulo State. Next, please. And here's some basic information about Centro Paula Souza. We have technical high schools and technical colleges. We at this moment, we operate only with technical colleges. We have 73 campuses. 80 programs at the moment, 84,000 students, and we run approximately 15 to 17 programs a semester. And there's about 500 Brazilian students involved a semester. I'm sorry for the mistake there. Next, please. I think from most of our virtual exchange friends, I feel that I'm normally swimming against the tide in terms of how we train our professors. We like to customize our COIL projects rather than giving large lectures or getting people involved in training sessions. I talk to the professor's interest. I customize the project. It's basically learning as we go. I give professors some pointers about COIL management, give them a basic framework so they can start. I tell them about an icebreaker, getting to know each other's local partners. We get to the main task that depends on the kind of COIL that we're working with, and a reflection process. After that, I basically try to follow up on the process, on the project as much as possible. In terms of training for our students, I don't have anything structured up to this moment. I think this is going to improve this semester. I'm going to have some extra help, but I normally give my professors, and if I have a chance of talking to students, a pep talk about English as an international language. I think Alami talked about this, and it's very crucial that natives and non-natives join forces on this. I think a heavy burden has been put on the back of the non-native speakers, and if you don't speak a foreign language, you don't know how difficult it is to communicate regardless of how fluent you are. Hope also asked us to talk about icebreakers. I always ask native speakers to initiate conversation as much as possible. If you're shy, I'm shy, everybody's shy, and but if you have the upper hand of the language, please do so. With Brazilians, it always works. Talk snow. You know, if you know, we don't have any snow in Brazil. So if you start talking about snow, as Keiko said, food is always a good topic, and these things always work. I always insist that we have a very Hollywoodian kind of image of the U.S. So if you can show your students, if you can show our students your real life, how it works, your house, this kind of thing is really interesting, because we start breaking stereotypes. Next, please, Hope. Here are some, if you're working with Brazilians, this is some of the things that you have to be aware of. 15 minutes for us is charmingly late. You know, you can be 15 minutes earlier or late. So, you know, melting pot, as much as in the US, you know, my family is, in my family I have Italian, Portuguese, native Brazilian, African Brazilian. My wife is half Japanese, half Spanish. You know, it's a total melting pot. So you be ready for a wide range of ethnic groups. Normally, people talk about long-term planning. Brazilians are not very familiar with that concept. We plan as we go. I'm always surprised with the kind of long syllabi that American professors have. I just worked with one that had like a 17-page syllabus, and I was impressed. Our syllabi is normally 2-3 page tops long. There is also an interesting perspective that we learned is.
Okay, that's your 5-minute marker.
Okay, and this pedagogical perspective I learned while working with Hope in one project. You know, this is a very general idea. Americans like to break information into smaller chunks and make sure that the students understand the parts, while Brazilians love to ask open-ended questions. So we normally start, what's culture? And we go from there, and we let students talk, and then we go on and discuss that. So this can cause some kind of pedagogical friction. Brazilians are very used to turmoil, and here's an example. I don't know if you can see all the things, you know, I'm not saying that I'm this old, but I remember going through all these currency changes. This is how many times currency has changed in Brazil in the last years. We were in a situation where inflation reached a high of 5,000% a year. So planning, as I said, is very on the go. And if you're working with Brazilian, get ready for some ups and downs. Most Brazilians will deliver it on time, but it's like if it's due at 11:59, they will deliver it 11:58 or 59. So, okay. I think that's my piece, Hope.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so Miriam, you next up. It's you.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see some familiar faces. I'm talking to you from the United Kingdom. Milton Keynes is where the Open University is located. As of the 1st of January, I have a new remit here. I'm responsible for internationalization, equality, diversity, and inclusion. However, next. I'm here to talk the Erasmus Plus next. I'm here to talk about the Erasmus Plus and the next virtual exchange. There is no way I can do this project justice in 5 to 8 minutes. I'll try my best, but feel free to come back to me and other consortium members who are here in this meeting, like Alkinas from Solea, for example, to ask questions even beyond the webinar. Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange is an innovative way for young people to engage in intercultural experiences online. It's about expanding the reach and scope of the traditional Erasmus Plus program. The objectives are twofold. On the one hand, it's about fostering mutual understanding and dialogue. On the other hand, it's about promoting the development of skills, the famous 21st century skills, critical thinking, intercultural communication, empathy, media, and digital literacy. We have a target of reaching 25,000 youth in this pilot phase, 2018 to 2020. We are well on our way to reaching these figures, and Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange is implemented by a consortium. I personally belong to the Uni Collaboration Organization. Next. The creation of Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange project was informed both by educational and political objectives, so it sits at the interface of politics and education. And on the political side in particular, the project aims to support values of freedom, tolerance, and non-discrimination through education, to enhance cooperation relations with southern Mediterranean countries, also north of the Mediterranean, with south of the Mediterranean, the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa in particular. And it is about mitigating the negative effects caused by the rise of fake news around the globe. Next. The various activities, I'm going to talk about them in a moment, are open to any young person, and being young in the EU means being between 18 and 30 years old. You have to reside in the Erasmus Plus program countries and or the MENA region. The project targets higher education professors in particular, but also university managers and administrators, educators, and very important youth workers, youth organizations. Next. Among the things that make Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange unique is that the learning is experiential. So young people are not just learning about things, but are in fact experiencing how to be or to become comfortable and to collaborate with people with different ideas and backgrounds. This means the building of empathy and other competencies such as intercultural communicative competence, while engaging constructively with their peers. Next. The topics that are touched in the various activities is a wide variety of topics. They are related to current events and political and social issues that matter to youth. They include religion, gender equality, social inclusion, migration, human rights, current events, current affairs, and environmental issues. And there is increasingly also a push to aligning our work with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Next, I'm talking about the activities now. First, we have the so-called IUCs, not MOOCs, IUCs, interactive open online courses. They take place in small online groups. Each week, participants come for an intercultural dialogue session and are given an interactive assignment to complete. So they combine intercultural exchange with online or traditional online learning. Topics are, for example, cultural encounters, perspectives on populism, or countering hate speech. Next, we have the debate exchanges. Here we have a two-step approach. First, you have to participate in a team leader training session on parliamentary debate skills. After that, teams from the north and the south of the Mediterranean engage in an online debate on a topic of their choice. These sessions are hosted by debate trainers, and the debates are moderated by the two team leaders of each team.
Okay, that's your 5 minutes. You got just a couple more.
Okay, I have two more activities to talk about. Next, please, are the online facilitated dialogue. This is the remit of Solia and the Sharing Perspective Foundation in particular, where young people meet face-to-face with peers from different countries and participate in discussions in the presence of neutral and specifically trained facilitators. Next, and final activity within Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange is the training for transnational exchange projects, the most COIL type kind of activity. Here we offer professional development to individuals from universities and youth organizations who have an idea for a virtual exchange and are interested in designing and implementing it together with the partner. Now there's also the facilitation training, yeah, to run the facilitated sessions. Next one. This is also part of Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. So these people are not teachers, yeah, they are facilitators. Their objective is to make participants feel comfortable and expressing their own thoughts and ideas and engaging with otherness. There are 2 slides about with figures which you can skip. Can you travel forward quickly? Because I'm sure we are sharing these slides with all of you afterwards. I hope so, so you can look at them in your own time. The final slide, please, is where you find more information on Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. Next one. Final slide, which is called The Hub. So I encourage you all, go there. You'll find out a lot more than I was able to present in the time I was given here. But I've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening.
Okay, you actually have a minute and a half, and the one thing that we wanted to know was, in terms of training your students and faculty to do this, what are some of the things that they need to learn to work with others? What do you suggest to them? And so what is the training?
Well, for each of these activities, obviously the training looks different. Yeah, this is a massive undertaking, Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. I can speak particularly about the training for transnational exchange projects. If you go a couple of slides back, activity number 4, please, Hope. Yeah. Here I would say the most important thing is to create this relationship between the 2 youth, the representatives of the youth organizations, or the 2 professors from each of the higher education institutions. So we invest quite a lot of time into training them so that they are singing from the same hymn sheet and that they find out about each other's context as much as possible while they are designing a virtual exchange or a transnational exchange project together. And again, the approach is experiential learning. In the training, they are going through a COIL type virtual exchange type experience so that they know what their learners are going to experience subsequently in the virtual exchange they're designing for them. Say, yes, we do teach icebreakers. Yes, they are often about food, fashion, folklore, and festivals. But my personal plea is to move on to the real burning socio-political issues of our times and to use virtual exchange to work with young people to tackle those in a meaningful and facilitated way.